The air shook with a loud crash. My tractor, my pride and joy, lay in pieces. Its shiny red body was crumpled like a soda can, the tires slashed, and the engine smoking. I stood frozen, my heart pounding, staring at the wreckage in my field. Hoa Karen, my neighbor, stood nearby, holding a sledgehammer, her face red with anger. "That noisy monster's done for," she shouted, pointing at the tractor. "No more waking me up at dawn." My mouth dropped open. She didn't know. She had no idea what she'd just done. That tractor wasn't just a machine it fed nations. And now, it was gone. What would happen to the harvest? To the people who needed my crops? My knees felt weak as I stared at the destruction, wondering how it came to this. But then, Hoa Karen dropped the sledgehammer and ran toward her house, leaving me with one burning question. Why would she do this? Let's go back to the beginning, a few weeks ago, when things were still calm. My name's Jake, and I'm a farmer. My family's worked this land for generations, growing corn, wheat, and soybeans. Our farm isn't just big, it's huge. We supply food to stores across the country, even to places overseas. Without my tractor, none of that happens. It's a special machine, custom built to handle our massive fields. It's loud, sure, but it's the heart of my farm. Hoa Karen moved in next door last month. She's from the city and bought the little house by my field to live quietly. From day one, she complained about everything, the roosters crowing, the smell of the crops, and especially my tractor. "It's too loud," she'd yell over the fence. "Can't you use a quieter one?" I tried to explain that this tractor was the only one strong enough for my fields, but she'd just huff and storm off. At first, I thought she'd get used to it. I even invited her over for lemonade to talk things out. She came, but all she did was lecture me about noise pollution. I stayed polite, nodding, hoping she'd calm down. But deep inside, I felt a knot forming. I couldn't stop farming. People depended on my grocery stores, families, even kids who needed bread for their sandwiches. I had no idea how bad things would get. One morning, I found a note taped to my tractor. "Quiet down or else." It was Hoa Karen's handwriting. My stomach twisted. What did "or else" mean? I showed the note to my farmhand, Tommy, a cheerful guy who's worked with me for years. "She's just grumpy," Tommy said, laughing. "What's she gonna do? Yell louder?" I chuckled, but the note stuck with me. Something about it felt threatening. Days passed, and Hoa Karen's complaints got worse. She'd bang pots and pans at dawn to show me how it feels. She called the police once, saying my tractor was disturbing the peace. The officer, a friend of mine, just shrugged and said, "Jake's got a farm, ma'am." Hoa Karen's face turned purple, and she stormed off again. I thought that was the end of it, but I was wrong. One night, I woke up to a strange sound metal scraping. I grabbed my flashlight and ran outside. My tractor was still there, but something felt off. The air was heavy, like a storm was coming. I checked the tractor and found scratches on its side. Someone had been here. My heart raced. Was it Hoa Karen, or was I imagining things? The next morning, I started the tractor like always. It roared to life, and I began plowing the field. But as I worked, I saw Hoa Karen standing at the fence, glaring. She wasn't just annoyed, she looked furious. Her hands were clenched, and her eyes locked on the tractor like it was her enemy. I waved, trying to be friendly, but she didn't wave back. Instead, she pulled out her phone and started recording me. "What's she up to?" I muttered, my stomach churning. That afternoon, Tommy ran up to me, his face pale. "Jake, you gotta see this." He showed me his phone. Hoa Karen had posted a video online, calling my tractor a menace and saying I was ruining her life. The video had thousands of views. People in the comments were cheering her on, saying things like, "Shut that farmer down." My chest tightened. They didn't know the truth. They didn't know what my tractor meant to the world. I decided to talk to Hoa Karen one last time. I knocked on her door, my hands sweaty. She opened it, glaring. "What do you want?" she snapped. I took a deep breath. "Please, let's work this out. My tractor's loud, but it's important. It feeds people, lots of people." She crossed her arms. "I don't care. I need sleep. Fix it or I will." She slammed the door in my face. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about her words, "Fix it or I will." What did she mean? I tossed and turned, picturing my tractor, my fields, and the families who needed my crops. I had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I stepped outside, and that's when I saw it. My tractor, smashed to bits, Hoa Karen holding the sledgehammer, and now she was running away. I chased after her, shouting, "Stop! You don't know what you've done!" But she was fast, and she vanished into her house, locking the door. I stood there, panting, my world falling apart. Then I heard a low rumble in the distance. It wasn't my tractor. It was something else, something big, and it was coming closer. The rumble grew louder, shaking the ground beneath my feet. I spun around, my heart racing, expecting to see a storm cloud or a machine rolling toward my farm, but it was worse. A crowd of people marched across the field, holding signs that read, "Stop the noise," and "Save our peace." Hoa Karen's video had gone viral, and now her city friends had shown up to support her. They chanted, their voices sharp and angry, trampling my crops without a care. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just about my tractor anymore. It was about my whole farm. I ran toward them, waving my arms. "Please stop. You're ruining the food we grow." But they didn't listen. And then I saw Hoa Karen at the front, smiling like she'd won. What had she done? Had she planned this all along? Let's go back a few days, right after Hoa Karen slammed her door in my face. I walked back to my farmhouse, my head spinning. Her words, "Fix it, or I will," kept echoing in my mind. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the note she left on my tractor. "Quiet down or else." Tommy came over, trying to cheer me up. "She's all talk, Jake," he said, tossing a baseball in the air. "She can't do anything real." I nodded, but deep down, I wasn't so sure. Hoa Karen wasn't just grumpy, she was determined, and that scared me. The next morning, I tried to focus on work. I fired up the tractor, its loud roar filling the air. As I plowed, I noticed something odd. A car was parked by Hoa Karen's house, one I'd never seen before. Then another pulled up. People got out, carrying cameras and microphones. Reporters? My heart sank. Had she called the news? I kept working, but my hands shook on the steering wheel. When I finished, Tommy ran up, his eyes wide. "Jake, you're on TV," he said, holding up his phone. Sure enough, there I was, driving my tractor, with Hoa Karen's voice in the background saying, "This man's machine is destroying our lives." The news anchor called me the noisy farmer. I felt sick. They didn't mention the food I grew or the people I fed. They only cared about her story. That afternoon, I went to town to clear my head. At the grocery store, people stared at me. Some whispered, "That's the guy from the news." Others glared like I was a villain. I grabbed my supplies and left, my face burning. When I got home, I found a letter in my mailbox. It was from the county saying they were investigating my farm for noise complaints. Hoa Karen's name was all over it. I crumpled the paper, my hands shaking. This was getting out of control. That night, I sat on my porch, staring at the stars. My dad used to tell me, "Jake, this farm's bigger than you. It's about feeding people, keeping them strong." I thought about the kids who ate bread from my wheat, the families who bought my corn. If I lost the tractor, I'd lose the farm. And if I lost the farm, I didn't want to think about it. I went to bed, promising myself I'd fight back. The next day, I decided to try something new. I printed flyers about my farm, explaining how my tractor helped feed thousands of people. I handed them out in town, smiling at everyone, even the ones who glared. Some folks listened, nodding when I told them about the families who needed my crops. Others just walked away. When I got home, I felt a little hope. Maybe I could win them over. But then things got weird. That night, I heard the scraping sound again, metal on metal. I grabbed my flashlight and ran to the barn. The tractor was fine, but one of its tires had a long cut like someone had stabbed it with a knife. My blood ran cold. I looked toward Hoa Karen's house. Her lights were off, but I saw a shadow move by her fence. "Who's there?" I shouted. No answer. I ran to her gate, but it was locked. My heart pounded. Was she sneaking around my farm? Or was it someone else? The next morning, I fixed the tire, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something bad was coming. Tommy noticed my worry. "You okay, boss?" he asked. I told him about the shadow. He frowned. "We need to watch the tractor at night," he said. So we took turns staying up, guarding the barn. Nothing happened for 2 nights, and I started to relax. Maybe it was just my imagination. Then, Hoa Karen's video exploded online. By the 3rd day, it had millions of views. People from the city started calling my phone, yelling about noise. Some even showed up at my farm, taking pictures of my fields. I begged them to leave, but they laughed, saying, "We're with Hoa Karen." My chest tightened. This wasn't just about her anymore. She turned my life into a circus. That afternoon, I saw her talking to a man in a suit by her house. He looked important, like a lawyer or a politician. They kept pointing at my farm, nodding. I wanted to march over and demand answers, but Tommy stopped me. "Don't give her more ammo, Jake," he said. I gritted my teeth and went back to work, but I couldn't focus. What was she planning? That night, I fell asleep on the couch, exhausted. I woke up to the sound of smashing metal. I bolted outside, and there it was, my tractor, destroyed. Hoa Karen holding the sledgehammer, running away. I chased her, shouting, but she locked herself in her house. And then I heard the rumble. I turned to see the crowd marching toward my farm, their signs high, their voices loud. Hoa Karen stood at the front, leading them like a general. My fields were in danger. My crops were being crushed. And then I saw something glint in her hand, not a sledgehammer this time, but a key. A key to what? The key in Hoa Karen's hand glinted under the morning sun as the crowd's chants grew louder. "Stop the noise! Stop the noise!" they shouted, stomping through my fields, flattening my precious corn. I ran toward them, my heart pounding, waving my arms. "You're destroying food for thousands!" I yelled, but they ignored me, their eyes fixed on Hoa Karen. She held the key up like a trophy, her smile sharp and cold. What did it unlock? My barn? My house? Or something worse? I sprinted toward her, dodging the crowd, but she slipped behind a group of her supporters, vanishing into the chaos. Then, I heard a new sound, a loud hiss from the edge of my field. I turned and saw a cloud of smoke rising from my irrigation system. Someone had sabotaged it. Water sprayed everywhere, flooding my crops. My knees buckled. This wasn't just about my tractor anymore. Hoa Karen was trying to destroy my entire farm. But why? And what was that key for? Let's go back a few days. Right after I saw Hoa Karen with the man in the suit, that moment stuck with me. Who was he? And why were they pointing at my land? I told Tommy about it, and he scratched his head. "Maybe she's got a lawyer," he said, "trying to sue you or something." The thought made my stomach twist. I couldn't afford a lawsuit. Every penny I earned went back into the farm seeds, fuel, repairs. If Hoa Karen took me to court, I could lose everything. The next morning, I decided to do some digging. I drove to the county office in town, where they kept records of land and property. The clerk, Mrs. Thompson, was an old friend of my mom's. "Jake, what's got you so worried?" she asked, seeing my face. I told her about Hoa Karen, the complaints, the video, and the man in the suit. She frowned and pulled out a big book of property records. "Let's see what's going on with your neighbor," she said. We found Hoa Karen's file. Her house was bought under her name, but there was something strange. A company called Bright Future Realty was listed as a co-owner. "That's odd," Mrs. Thompson said. "This company's been buying up land around here, but they're quiet about it." My heart skipped a beat. Was Hoa Karen working with someone? Was this about more than just noise? I thanked Mrs. Thompson and drove home, my mind racing. I needed to know more about Bright Future Realty. That afternoon, I searched online. Bright Future Realty had a slick website, all about modernizing rural areas. They talked about building shopping centers and fancy houses. My blood ran cold. Did they want my land? Was Hoa Karen part of some bigger plan to force me out? I showed Tommy the website, and he whistled. "Jake, this is bad. If they want your farm, they'll do anything to get it." I nodded, feeling a mix of fear and anger. My farm wasn't just my home, it was my life. I wasn't giving it up. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the shadow I'd seen by Hoa Karen's fence, the cut on my tractor's tire, and now this realty company. It all felt connected. I decided to keep a closer eye on her. The next morning, I set up a small camera by my barn, hidden in a tree. If she was sneaking around, I'd catch her. Tommy thought I was being paranoid, but he helped me anyway. "Better safe than sorry, boss," he said, climbing the tree to adjust the camera. For 2 days, nothing happened. The camera showed rabbits and birds, but no Hoa Karen. I started to wonder if I was losing it. Maybe she was just a grumpy neighbor and I was making it bigger than it was. But then, on the third night, the camera caught something. At 2 a.m., a figure crept toward my barn. They wore a hoodie, but I could tell it was Hoa Karen by the way she moved, quick and sharp, like a cat. She fiddled with the barn door, then pulled out a key. My heart stopped. She had a key to my barn? How? She didn't go inside though. She just tested the lock, nodded, and slipped away. I watched the footage over and over, my hands shaking. Where did she get that key? The next day, I changed the barn's lock, just to be safe. I didn't tell Tommy. I didn't want him to worry, but I started keeping a crowbar by my bed, just in case. Hoa Karen was up to something, and I needed to be ready. That afternoon, I saw her talking to the man in the suit again. This time, he handed her a folder. She glanced at my farm, then tucked the folder under her arm and went inside. I wanted to confront her, but something told me to wait. I needed more proof. Then came the morning of the tractor wreck. After Hoa Karen smashed it, I thought that was the worst of it. But now, standing in my field, watching the crowd she'd rallied destroy my crops, I knew it was only the beginning. The hiss from the irrigation system got louder, and water poured across the field, turning it into a muddy mess. I ran toward it, slipping in the mud, desperate to stop the flood. Tommy was already there, trying to shut off the valve. "It's jammed," he shouted. I looked closer and saw why a metal pin had been shoved into the valve, locking it open. This was no accident. I turned back to the crowd. They were closer now, their signs waving like weapons. Hoa Karen stood at the front, holding that key again. She raised it high, and the crowd cheered louder. My heart pounded. What did that key unlock? My barn? Something on my farm? Or was it a symbol, a signal for something bigger? Then I saw the man in the suit step out from the crowd, holding a megaphone. He raised it to his lips and shouted, "This farm's days are numbered." The crowd roared. I froze, my blood turning to ice. They weren't just here to protest. They were here to take my land. The bulldozer's roar drowned out the crowd's chants as it barreled toward my farmhouse. its massive blade gleaming like a giant knife. My heart stopped. That wasn't just any bulldozer, it was aimed at my home, the place where my family had lived for generations. I sprinted toward it, mud splashing under my boots, shouting, "Stop! You can't do this!" The driver didn't even look at me. Behind him, Hoa Karen stood with the man in the suit, her key still in her hand, her face smug. The crowd cheered louder, egging the bulldozer on. My crops were already drowning in the sabotaged irrigation flood. My tractor was a wreck, and now this. I reached the bulldozer and banged on its side, but it kept moving. Tommy grabbed my arm, pulling me back. "Jake, you'll get hurt," he yelled. I shook him off, desperate. If they destroyed my house, the farm was finished. But then I saw something in Hoa Karen's other hand map, with my land marked in red. My blood ran cold. That key, that map, the bulldoze writ was all part of a plan. But what was she unlocking? And why did they want my farm so badly? Let's back up a bit, to the day after I saw Hoa Karen on my barn camera, testing that mysterious key. I was shaken, but I didn't tell anyone, not even Tommy. Changing the barn's lock felt like a small victory, but I knew it wasn't enough. I needed to figure out what Hoa Karen was planning. That morning, I drove back to the county office to dig deeper into Bright Future Realty. Mrs. Bright Future Realty, Thompson was there again, sipping coffee. "Back so soon, Jake?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. I told her about the key, the man in the suit, and the folder. Her face grew serious. "Let me check something," she said, typing on her computer. What she found made my stomach drop. Bright Future Realty wasn't just buying land. They were pushing farmers out to build a huge shopping mall. My farm was in the center of their plan. "They've been sneaky," Mrs. Thompson said, "buying up small plots, pressuring owners to sell. Your neighbor's house is one of theirs." I clenched my fists. Hoa Karen wasn't just a grumpy neighbor, she was working with them. But why the key? And why destroy my tractor? Mrs. Thompson printed out a map of their planned mall. My fields, my house, my barn, every inch of my land was marked. I thanked her and left, my mind racing. I had to protect my farm. When I got home, I told Tommy everything. His eyes widened. "They want to bulldoze this place for a mall? That's crazy." We agreed to keep watch on Hoa Karen's house. That night, we hid behind some bushes near her fence, binoculars in hand. Around midnight, a black car pulled up. The man in the suit got out, carrying a briefcase. Hoa Karen met him at her door, and they whispered, glancing at my farm. I couldn't hear them, but I saw her hand him the key. He nodded and put it in his pocket. My heart sank. That key was important, but to what? The next day, I tried to talk to the town. I went door to door, showing people the map and explaining how my farm fed thousands. Some listened, like old Mr. Jenkins, who said, "We need your crops, Jake. Don't let those city folks win." Others slammed their doors, saying they'd seen Hoa Karen's video and thought I was a nuisance. I felt like I was fighting a losing battle. That evening, I found another note on my barn. "Sell now or regret it." My hands shook. This was no joke anymore. The next morning, things got worse. I woke up to find my fences cut, letting my cows wander into the road. It took hours to round them up. Tommy found a knife near the fence, shiny and new, like it was left on purpose. "This is Hoa Karen's doing," he said, his voice low. I nodded, but I was starting to wonder if she was working alone. The man in the suit, the key, the realty company, it felt like a web closing around me. That afternoon, I called a lawyer friend, Sarah, for help. She came over, looking at the map and the notes. "Jake, this is serious," she said. "They're trying to scare you into selling. That key might be to something on your land or water valve, a gas line, something they can sabotage." I hadn't thought of that. My farm had old underground pipes from my grandpa's time. Could the key unlock one of those? I promised Sarah I'd search the farm for any old locks. That night, I searched the fields with a flashlight, looking for anything unusual. Near the irrigation system, I found a rusty metal box half buried in the dirt. It had a lock on that looked like it could fit Hoa Karen's key. My heart raced. Was this what she was after? I didn't have time to find out. The next morning, I woke to the sound of my tractor being smashed. Then came the crowd, the flood, and now the bulldozer. It was inches from my house now, its blade gleaming. I ran in front of it, waving my arms, my voice hoarse. Stop! This is my home! The driver finally looked at me, but his face was blank, like he didn't care. The crowd cheered louder, and Hoa Karen waved the map, shouting, "This land's ours now." I looked at Tommy, his face pale. We were out of time. I had to stop this, but how? Then I remembered the rusty box and the key in Hoa Karen's hand. If I could get that key, maybe I could stop her plan. But the bulldozer was seconds away from my porch, and the crowd was closing in. Then, a siren blared in the distance, and red and blue lights flashed across the field. The sirens wailed louder, cutting through the bulldozer's roar and the crowd's chants. Red and blue lights flashed across my muddy fields as 3 police cars sped toward us. My heart leaped. Was help finally here? The bulldozer slowed, its driver glancing nervously at the approaching cars. Hoa Karen's face twisted, her smug smile fading as she clutched the key and the map. The man in the suit shouted, "Keep going!" But the crowd hesitated, their signs drooping. I stood in front of my house, panting, mud caked on my boots, ready to fight for my farm. But then I saw who stepped out of the lead police car. Sheriff Daniels, a friend of my dad's, but also someone who'd been getting complaints about my noisy tractor for weeks. Would he side with me or Hoa Karen? And what was that key about to unlock? As the sheriff walked toward us, I noticed something else. See a news van pulling up behind the police cars, cameras rolling. The whole town was watching now. This was my last chance to save my farm. But Hoa Karen raised the key high, shouting, "This land's done." What was she about to do? Let's back up to the moment the bulldozer started rolling, just before the sirens. My mind was racing, locked on that rusty box I'd found near the irrigation system. If Hoa Karen's key fit that lock, it could control something big. Maybe the old water pipes that fed my fields. My grandpa had built a system to redirect water from a nearby river, and that box might be the main valve. If she opened it, she could flood my entire farm, ruining my crops for good. That's why she'd sabotaged the irrigation system. It was just the start. The key was her real weapon. I had to get it from her, but the bulldozer was inches from my porch and the crowd was closing in. I'd called Sarah, my lawyer friend, earlier that morning, begging for help. "Jake, I'm on it," she said. "I'll call the sheriff and the news. Stay safe." I hadn't expected them to show up so fast, but now they were here and everything was happening at once. Sheriff Daniels raised a megaphone. "Everybody, back off. This is private property." The bulldozer stopped, its engine rumbling low. The crowd murmured, confused, but Hoa Karen didn't flinch. She marched toward the sheriff, waving the map. "This farm's a nuisance," she shouted. "We have rights." The man in the suit nodded, pulling out his briefcase, probably full of legal papers to back her up. I ran to Sheriff Daniels, my voice shaking. "They're trying to steal my land. She smashed my tractor, flooded my fields, and now this bulldozer's gonna destroy my house." He frowned, looking at the wrecked tractor and the muddy crops. "I've heard both sides, Jake," he said. "Got a lot of complaints about your noise." My heart sank. Was he against me? But then he turned to Hoa Karen. "And I've got reports of vandalism and trespassing. Care to explain?" Her eyes widened and she stammered, "I'm just protecting my peace." The sheriff pointed at the key. "What's that for?" She froze, hiding it behind her back. That's when Tommy shouted, "Jake, the box!" I bolted toward the irrigation system, remembering the rusty box. The crowd gasped, and Hoa Karen screamed, "Stop him!" She ran after me, the man in the suit close behind. I slid through the mud, reaching the box and yanked it open. Inside was a big valve with a lock the kind that could fit her key. I turned to see Hoa Karen charging at me, her face furious. "You can't stop progress!" she yelled, raising the key like a weapon. I dove at her, grabbing her wrist. The key flew from her hand, landing in the mud. We both scrambled for it, splashing and slipping. The sheriff and his deputies ran over, pulling us apart. "Enough!" Daniel shouted. He picked up the key, then looked at the box. "What's this about, Jake?" I explained everything, the realty company, the mall plan, the old water valve. "If she unlocks that, my farm's gone," I said. The news cameras zoomed in, catching every word. The crowd went quiet, some lowering their signs. A few looked ashamed, realizing they'd been trampling food for thousands. Daniels turned to Hoa Karen. "You got a permit for this bulldozer? Or proof this key's yours?" She opened her mouth, but the man in the suit cut in. "We're within our rights. This land's zoned for development." Sarah stepped forward, holding papers. "Not true," she said. "I checked the records. Jake's land is protected for agriculture. You'd need his signature to change that, and he's not selling." The crowd gasped. Hoa Karen's face turned red. "This isn't over." She spat, but the sheriff handcuffed her and the man in the suit. "You're both coming with me for questioning," he said. The bulldozer driver climbed down, muttering, "I was just following orders." The crowd started to leave, some apologizing to me as they passed. The news crew ran up, asking for my story. I told them about my farm, my tractor, and how we fed nations. The reporter's eyes widened. "You're a hero, Jake," she said. I didn't feel like one just tired and muddy, but my house was safe, and the key was in the sheriff's hands. As the police cars drove away, I looked at my wrecked fields. The tractor was gone, the crops were damaged, but I wasn't giving up. Tommy clapped my shoulder. "We'll rebuild, boss," he said. I nodded, a spark of hope in my chest. Then I saw something in the mud the map Hoa Karen had dropped. I picked it up and saw a note in the corner. Phase 2, river access. My heart skipped. The river ran behind my farm, and Bright Future Realty wasn't done. They'd be back. I clenched the map, ready to fight again. But for now, my farm was many-end. I'd keep feeding nations, no matter what.